Assalamualaikum everyone, this is Rikshanda Beg. I hope you all are doing great. So if you want to take your spoken English or written English one step forward, so this video is for you. So stay with me till the end of this video because today we are going to study reduction of adjective clauses. To understand the reduction of adjective clauses, you need to know adjective clauses, the difference between adjectives and adjective clauses, relative pronouns and their usage. Hold on, do not stress out. We are going to cover all these concepts in this video. Along with that, I have compiled common ELL mistakes. These are the mistakes that students usually make while using relative pronouns to make adjective clauses. So I want my students not to repeat these mistakes, so that's why you need to pay full attention while doing this section. Furthermore, we have ideas for teaching that will cover all the three levels of learners: beginner, intermediate and advanced. At the end there is a practice sheet. So without any further ado, let's start our lesson. Okay, so we all know what are adjectives. We have been studying them since our school days as parts of a speech, and adjectives are usually defined as modifying words for noun and pronouns. They modify noun and pronouns. What if I say that this is the same function of adjective clauses, that they also modify nouns and pronouns? I know you people are confused at this point. That's why we say that similarities confuse and differences clear our concepts. So now look at the difference. The first difference is that of a position. A typical position of adjectives in a sentence is always before the noun. But in case of adjective clauses, they always go after the noun. Look at the examples. We planted neem trees in our street in Plantation Drive. Here, the adjective neem is before the noun trees. Okay? But as you can see in the second sentence, I planted trees in my garden that were 3 months old palm trees. Here, the whole clause is after the noun. So another difference between adjectives and adjective clauses is that of a form. Adjectives are single words. Adjective clauses are clauses that give us detailed information about a noun, as we have seen in this example. One more point that I want to make clear to you all, that adjective clauses always begin with the relative pronoun. Now, what are relative pronouns? Relative pronouns, as we know that pronouns are words that we use in place of noun. So relative pronouns are types of pronoun, one of the type of pronoun that connects a clause to the rest of the sentence. For our better understanding, we can say that they act as conjunctions because they are used to connect a clause to the sentence, or we can also say that they act as a joining words. So there are 1 to 2 relative pronouns, sorry, 2 to 3, no, there are 4 relative pronouns. I'm sorry, I'm very bad with numbers. We have 4 relative pronouns, namely who, whom, which and that. Who and whom are used for people, which use only for things, that can be used for both people or things. You people can see example: a person who respects a woman is a man of high moral values. In this sentence, who is used to modify, who is used for people. In second sentence, whom is used for people. I hope to meet the person whom you help to fight depression. The next relative pronoun is which. The example: for which is that this book is the type of literature which talks about child abuse in its true spirit. Now we have that. That is one of the most rich relative pronoun because we can use that for people as well as for things. That is why that is very common. A person that does not break traffic rule is not a coward but a responsible citizen. And the second example that is used for things. To Kill a Mockingbird is the type of literature that is a food for thought of the critical minds. Now we need to know that relative pronouns can take two possession in a sentence. One can be subject, another can be object. That's all. Who can only take subject possession? Whom can only take object possession? As you can see in the example, a person who respects women is a man with high moral values. Here who is used in subject possession. Now in our next example, whom is used in object possession. I wish to meet the person whom you helped to fight the depression. Now that, again, that's why I called that a rich pronoun, because it can take both the possession. The Heart of Darkness is the type of literature that raises students' critical consciousness. Here that is acting in subject possession. In the next sentence, that is acting as object possession. You can see here. This red book is the book that Ali used in his awareness session to give guidance to the parents about bad touch, which can also take both the positions, subject as well as object. In the first sentence, which is used in subject possession, the Heart of Darkness is the type of literature which raises a student's critical consciousness. In the second sentence, which is used in object possession. This is the type of book which Ali used in his awareness session to give guidance to the parents about bad touch. Now, we have a reduction of adjective clauses. But before going to explain reduction of adjective clauses, I want to make clear one thing, that whenever ELLs encounter reduction of adjective clauses for the first time, they think that it is something as a curative measure for the correct usage of adjective clauses. But that's not the case. Adjective clauses without reduction are correct version. They need not to be correct by applying reduction rules. You can use adjective clauses perfectly fine if you are using them without reduction. The purpose of using reduction clauses, reduced adjective clauses, is that to make your speech or to sound more like a native speaker, people use reduced version of adjective clauses. That's the only thing. And one more thing that I forgot to mention in relative pronoun is that relative pronouns act as the parents for adjective clauses. It means that they give birth to adjective clauses. Okay? You have to keep this point in mind. Now, look at the definition of reduced adjective clauses. A reduced adjective clause is a clause that is not marked by an explicit relative pronoun. Okay, it is something that is without relative pronoun. Look at this sentence. Poor kids lacking the basic necessities of life in Pakistan should go to the ED center for a better lifestyle. Now here, word lacking. Can you identify the word lacking in its function, like how the word lacking is acting in this particular sentence. If you're thinking that it is adjective, I'm sorry, you are wrong, because adjectives always come before the noun. And if you're thinking that it's a present participle, then again, it can't be present participle here in this sentence because it's not acting as a main verb. So it is in this particular sentence, lacking is the example of reduced adjective clause. Now, there are some rules. In fact, there are just two rules for reducing adjective clauses, and they are quite easy. The first rule says that when an adjective clause has who, that, which as the subject in any form of be, these two parts may be omitted without changing the meaning of the sentence. Now we know that adjective clause always begins with relative pronoun, and who, that, and which can take subject possession. So the first rule says that if who, that, and which is in subject position and is followed by a be verb, then you can reduce them. Okay? And there can be three categories of such sentences in which you can reduce relative pronoun along with the be verb. They can be prepositional phrase, present participle, and past participle. So look at the first sentence. The articles that are on the table discusses measures for the revival of the reading culture in Pakistani society. Now I want you to focus on the relative pronoun. Here our relative pronoun is that, and it is followed by are. So our first condition is satisfied, that if there is the relative pronoun in a sentence and is in subject position and is followed by a be verb, then we can reduce it. Now look at the reduced version of the same sentence. The articles on the table discusses measure for the revival of the reading culture in Pakistani society. Now, the next category, present participle. The man who is living near my home feeds street cats every day. Now here we have who as our relative pronoun and is as be verb. So it is reduced to the man living near my home feeds street cats every day. Now our next category is past participle. Here in this sentence we have that as a relative pronoun and had been as our be verb. So we will reduce it and our sentence will become the students chosen for the contest were well versed and meet the merit criteria. Okay, I hope this rule is clear. Now rule number 2. Rule number 2 says that when an adjective clause have who, which, that as the subject plus verb, these two parts may be changed into the ing form, present participle, without changing the meaning of the sentence. Now the first condition in rule 2 is the same as for the rule number 1. Rule number 1, that or relative pronoun who, which, and that has to be in subject position, but the second condition is different. In the rule number 1, or relative pronoun was supposed to be followed by be verb, but in rule number 2, or relative pronoun will be followed by a verb, not a be form of verb, but only verb. So now here we have example. The man who breaks traffic rules is a potential killer. Now here we have breaks as a verb, who as a relative pronoun, and we have reduced this sentence to the man breaking the traffic rules as a potential killer. So here breaking is the reduced version of the relative pronoun. So now we are done with the two rules. So now we are going to look at the common ELL mistakes that students make. and that you people are not supposed to make, because that's why we are studying. What they do, they forget to use relative pronoun. Here we have example. The autobiography of Nelson Mandela is The Long Walk to Freedom, educates world about racism and leadership. Here there is a lack of relative pronoun, so the correct sentence should be the autobiography of Nelson Mandela, that is The Long Walk to Freedom, educates world about racism and leadership. Here we can use which as well, because which can also be used for things. The second mistake is that they begin relative clause with the wrong word. For instance, they confused that which for people and who for things. Like, you cannot interchange which and who. As you can see in the example, Amir Liaquat, which was the pioneer of Ramzan transmission in Pakistan, is no more with us. May Allah rest his soul in peace. Okay, so in order to make this sentence grammatically correct, we have to change which into who, and we can even replace which by that, because we know that we can use who and that for people. In the third mistake, what ELLs do, they use pronoun after the verb of a relative clause. For instance, the man that we spoke to him. Now, there is no purpose of pronoun here. The sentence should be, the man that we spoke to is Dr. Amir Ali, the first youngest PhD scholar in the country. Now, the last mistake that is very common that people make, they omit subject. Okay, now the rule number 1 that we studied, that if there is a relative pronoun in adjective clause and is followed by be verb, then we have to reduce both the relative pronoun as well as the be verb. So what students do, that they reduced or they remove sometimes just the relative pronoun and sometimes just the be verb. So both of the conditions are wrong. Either you have to remove both the relative pronoun and the verb from this sentence, or you need not to remove. You can use you can use the adjective clause in its unreduced version. As I have told you earlier, that you can use unreduced version of adjective clauses in your writings, and that is perfectly fine from grammatical point of view. Now look at the example. A history critique book, The Mother of History, was written by K.K. Aziz, raised serious question. Okay, now look at this be verb was. Here what a student has done, he has reduced relative pronoun without reducing be verb. In the second sentence, the student has reduced be verb and not the that. So that is there, but was is missing. So the correct sentence should be, a history critique book, The Mother of History, that was written by K.K. Aziz, raised serious questions on the manipulation of the history. Okay, or you can even use which in this sentence. Why? Because which is used for things, and that can be used for both, for things as well as for people. Now, or one of very interesting section, ideas for teaching. So if you are introducing adjective clauses for the first time to your students, so what you should do is that you have to ask them to make 2 sentences and then demonstrate them how they can glue these 2 different sentences inside the one sentence. For instance, Amjad Thaqib is the founder of Akhwat Foundation. This is one complete sentence. Now we have second sentence. Amjad Thaqib is nominated for Nobel Peace Prize. Now, in this part, we have transformed these two different sentences with the help of relative pronoun into a single sentence. For instance, Amjad Saqib, who is the founder of a Quwat Foundation, is nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. So here who is acting as connecting word or conjunction, you can say. So if you are teaching beginning level, so you can use the difference between adjectives and adjective clauses as the start to as the first step to introduce this topic. But if you are teaching intermediate student, then your student must be familiar with the concept of adjective clauses. So what you need to do is that you have to ask them to come up with two different original sentences and then ask them to practice how to combine two different sentences. But the key thing that you need to do in with your intermediate student is that you have to inform them, you have to aware them that there can be multiple choices for combining two sentences, two similar sentences. For instance, the difference can be because of the use or because of the choice of relative pronoun. Okay, so you have to discuss all these things in detail with your intermediate student. And if you're teaching advanced students, so you have to cover each and everything in its entirety. For example, the rules for the reduction of adjective clauses, the possibility of multiple answers for the adjective clauses, and a lot of practice. As I have told you earlier that we will be doing practice sheet at the end of this video. So there are 1 2 3 4 5, there are 5 sentences, and in these 5 sentences there are mistakes, and these mistakes are related to the usage of relative pronoun or adjective clauses. I hope you people will be able to do it, and if you have any question you can ask me in the comment box. So let's call it for a day. If you like this video, give a thumbs up, and goodbye. That's all from Miss Big.